All right, guys, this is the best book for making money I have ever read. And that is hyperbole. There's actually a lot of great books that you could read about making money. At the end of the day, making money is relatively simple. We overcomplicate it, but most books out there on the topic, they distill the basics down to the fundamentals, and they can seem overly simplistic, but I'm telling you, like, that's the game, is executing the fundamentals with excellence. That's what wins the championships, and that's what will make you money. But the reason I want to recommend this book to you today is because it's really well written, it's really entertaining, and it does a comprehensive job of addressing all of the things that I think you need to reframe in your brain if you want to go make money. So it's not just the tactical, here's how to make the money, but the things that precede that, the foundational skills, the mindsets, the beliefs that you're going to have to unlock and unblock if you want to go and make money. So there's 5 things in here that I've just quickly pulled from this book, 5 ideas that I want to share with you that are very, very powerful, that this book will do a fantastic job breaking down for you. But then I don't go into the second half of the book, which is all the tactical sides of like how to build a business. And really at the end of the day, that is the best way to make money. So that's the lens in which this gentleman is talking. Now, the book is called Unscripted by MJ DeMarco. I get a lot of crap when I do videos for you guys, book videos, because I guess I just flash the book really fast. I say the name really quickly and then I put the book down and then I keep talking. People are like, it's not fair. You're like, blah, 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 blah. So here you go. That's the book, Unscripted, Life, Liberty, and the Pursuit of Entrepreneurship by MJ DeMarco. Now, MJ wrote another fantastic book called The Millionaire Fastlane. I would actually start with that book first and then read Unscripted afterwards. I actually think that's a better book, The Millionaire Fastlane. I just don't have a physical copy of it with me. I read it on my phone many, many years ago. And so I do have Unscripted, so that's what the book I'm going to recommend today is, but both of those are very good. So let's talk about a couple of the ideas from inside this book that I think are well worth unpacking. The first one is this belief that the goal for most people is one of building income, right? What he talks about is the goal is actually building wealth versus income, and the difference between those two. And I think this is a really important basic concept to start with because a lot of people don't differentiate between wealth and income. It's all just kind of this amorphic money in the bank. I have a certain number of resources and they think about it holistically. But when you ask most people on the street, what's your net worth? They don't really have a good answer for it. They haven't necessarily thought about what their net worth is or wealth in any kind of objective way. And so they typically default then to income. Now, income is not a bad way to measure wealth. It is a way, but understanding that wealth, the way I think about it and the way that this book talks about it, is the difference between what you make and what you keep. And so it's a ratio rather than just a single number. And this is really important because there's 2 ways to increase your wealth then. It's either to increase your earning capacity or to decrease your spending. Those are the 2 ways. So if you made $100,000 a year and you spent $90,000 a year, then you're only building $10,000 worth of wealth every year. That's how much leftover you have. It would take you 10 years at that rate to earn, 9 years at that rate to earn 1 year worth of wealth. Here's what that means, right? If you're making 100,000, you spend 90,000, 90,000 is your burn. It's going to take you 9 years saving 10,000 each year to cover your annual burn rate of $90,000. So for every year you work, you cut into that number by like 1/9. Okay, here's why this is important. If you were to decrease your spending from 90,000 down to 50,000, then every year you work, you save 50,000. So in 2 years of work, you will have saved up in 1 year's of work, 50,000 and 100,000, you will have saved up 1 full year's worth of expenses. So for every year you work at that ratio, you're building 1 year of wealth. So you do that for 10 years, and now you can take the next 10 years off because you've built up 10 years of wealth. So it's a very different way of thinking about how much money you have in versus your resources. So that's the first idea, is wealth versus income. Second idea is the idea of defense versus offense. Now, I just got done talking about defense, talking about reducing your expenses, right? Wealth is the ratio between what you make and what you keep. So one way of increasing that is to decrease what you spend. If you decrease from 90,000 a year down to $50,000 a year, boom, your wealth just went up, quite substantially, right? And that is where most people stop. That's what most people fixate on, is cutting their expenses. The problem is you can only cut your expenses so far. You can only cut your expenses down to zero, and then you can't go any further below zero. So if you're making $100,000 a year and you spend absolutely nothing, you're capped at $100,000 of wealth every year, right? $100,000 of savings. Now, what most people fail to understand in the paradigm shift is when you realize that your earning capacity is infinite. Your expenses, it's capped. You can only go to zero. But your earning, you could earn billions. There are people that earn tens of billions of dollars every single year, right? There's practically there's no limit to the upside here. So you could, instead of trying to reduce your spending from $90,000 a year down to 50, you could just increase your earning to 200,000 or 300,000. Or what if you started making 2 million a year? Like, paradigm shifting. And that's the frame that you have to be in if you want to build wealth, is not just thinking, how do I save my way to wealth? Because that's actually quite difficult. And in most cases, you need to dramatically increase your earning capacity. That's the most important value or variable of success of building wealth. So that's idea number 2. Idea number 3 is that I am poor because you are rich. It's this idea that money is a finite game, that there's only so much of it to go around. This buys into this limited fixed mindset that there are limited resources in the world, and that for me to get ahead means it comes at the expense of you. It's a very limited and wrong perspective, because wealth is actually an infinite game. As we build wealth, there's more wealth to distribute. And we know this demonstrably simply by the fact that people are better off, more wealthy holistically across the planet today than they were 50 years ago or 100 years ago or 300 years ago. Everybody is collectively building more wealth. That's a function of the advancement of technology, of industry, of our ability to transform things that were previously not a resource into a resource, right? Think about this, is that people who think there are limited resources to go around fail to understand that what we consider a resource today was not considered a resource 200 years ago, right? The use of, let's say, gasoline-powered engines was not, like, gasoline was not really a resource 500 years ago, right? But we discovered how to use it. The sun, the solar power wasn't a resource that we could tap into 200 years ago. We didn't have, voltaic cells. We couldn't harness that power and then redistribute it. We had some wind power. We might have had some maybe water power in a water mill, right? But like overall, our ability to use the resources of the things around us in a resourceful way has only expanded as our technology has expanded. So that's a really important idea, is that this is not a fixed game, is not finite. For me to win does not come at your expense. In fact, by going out and adding value to the world, in fact, that's what you get paid for. That's what you make the big money for, is how to add value to other people's lives, not to take away from their lives. So that's idea number 3. Idea number 4 is this simple little reframe, very powerful. Instead of asking yourself, how much does that thing cost from a dollars perspective, ask yourself instead, how much time does that cost? It's a simple reframe, but those sneakers, if those are $200 and you make $25 an hour, the reframe is, how many hours do you have to work to buy those shoes? And you're like, oh, I have to work 8 hours, a full work day to buy those shoes. And suddenly, if you're given the option of going and working for 8 hours at some retail job that you hate so that you can get these shoes, or just not working that job and having the day off to go do whatever you want with your homies, most people would be like, I'd rather just not work. And that's the mindset that you need to be in when you go to buy these things. It's like you traded a full work day for that thing. If given that choice, boom, right in front of you right now, would you like to have a day off or would you like these shoes? Most people would choose the day off. So get into that mindset whenever you're going to buy something, is saying, how much of my time did this cost me? Number 5, compound interest is a scam that it will not make you rich. It's not a scam in the sense that it's like a lie or anything like that. It's not really the way people get rich. It takes a long time to earn, to maximize the benefits of compounding interest. You put $200 in the bank every month for the next 20 years, 30 years, you're gonna wake up one day and you're gonna have $1 million. Sure, it's gonna take you 30, 40 years to do that though, right? So if you wanna build wealth, if you wanna get ahead in life, that's not going to be enough. The compounding interest requires a large sum of money to be working for you before it can actually be generating meaningful returns. So the question then becomes is like, where do you go and get that initial chunk of money for compounding interest to do its thing? Sure, once you have $5 million in the bank and you're only pulling 4% every year for your living expenses, that money's going to compound pretty damn fast. The bigger question is, where do you get the $5 million? And that goes back to the second idea, which was defense versus offense. Go and increase your earning capacity. Go get that $5 million and then worry about compounding interest. Don't rely on it as the means for building wealth, because it probably won't. So those are 5 ideas from the book Unscripted by MJ DeMarco. Go check it out. If you want to learn how to build wealth, that is a killer book for the topic. So that's going to do it for me, boys and girls. I'll see you in the next episode.